Well, how we doing? IB Nation Sports Talk. We are up and rolling, and it is mailbag night as we get ready for Notre Dame and Clemson this Saturday night at Notre Dame Stadium. He's Vince D'Addario. I'm Sean Stiers. Hope you're having a good one tonight. How are you tonight, Vince?
I'm great. I am fantastic. As we discussed yesterday, it was a carry-in at work today. So a lot of great food with little effort on my end. So I mean, it was pretty
Not
good
the
day.
Kool-Aid, though.
You're darn right I did, and I left it there. I didn't even take it home yet.
I got to see how Jesse's chili cook-off
Yeah.
went tomorrow. I haven't heard the results of that yet, so
I mean, it was
looking forward to that.
So I expect that he brought his best.
We're getting a few baseball questions actually in here tonight.
Friggin'
It is mailbag night, so if you're sitting there in the chat, throw in your question. I mean, it is Notre Dame Clemson. This is
one of the biggest
second
weeks of
biggest
the year.
game of the season, right? Or at least to this point, anyway. So
no doubt, regardless of Notre Dame's record and everything that's happened up to this point, how can you not get excited for Clemson coming to Notre Dame Stadium? Night game,
Seriously.
light show, all of it.
Did you watch any of the World Series last night?
Nope, not a second of it.
5 home runs. 5 home runs the Phillies hit. It was nuts. Bryce Harper is just coming unglued in this postseason, man. And
yeah,
the Phillies lead the series now,
which is crazy.
I know.
They're one of our loyal followers. I think Joe Poppity is he's in the chat a lot, and you know he's one of the people that we talk to. He's a Phillies fan. And he is just a glutton for punishment, man. Like when the Phillies are losing, it's a conspiracy. It's hilarious. I just love watching his posts during the games because he gets so upset and then he gets so elated when they do well. And he just rides that wave of emotion, man. Like it is hilarious. He is the definition of a true fan. It's hilarious.
Gotta love that. Gotta love that. Speaking of true fans of Irish Breakdown, smash that like button if you would to help us out a little bit. Smash the like button, subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff. We'll just stick with a World Series question or two. Nice. This is an interesting one here, not World Series, but baseball. But Mark says, since you're baseball fans, what do you think would happen if the NFL outlawed catching gloves like the MLB does aluminum bats? Also, if baseball MLB was launched today, would it be a 162 game season?
There's a lot to dissect there with that question, because what I will say is back when you and I played football, there were no gloves. I mean, they didn't really have the gloves like they have today.
They were still using, we could use, like stick 'em and stuff back then still.
Yeah, and it was,
I think it was Jack Tatum. Jack Tatum, I think, is the one that made it illegal.
When I was in high school, man, we didn't wear gloves. Like the only time we wore gloves was when it was like late in the season, it was cold outside. Like that's the only time you wore gloves. It never even occurred to me. Now you go into the sporting goods store. I don't know if you've ever put on a pair of those gloves, Sean. I don't know if they were around really when Jesse was playing. I'm sure they started.
He was. I was about to say, he was a linebacker, but he wore those gloves and they were filthy. They were just like his hands would sweat in those things, and they were the most disgusting. Like they were worse than, because like when I was in high school, you're like, speaking of what we used for baseball, we had batting gloves, but we still smeared them in pine tar.
Oh yeah. But I mean, they're so sticky.
Yeah, I know.
Mean, you have to have like zero talent to catch the ball with some of these gloves that you can just buy at Dick's Sporting Goods. I mean, it is unbelievable, the stick on these gloves. But I mean, the stink is a whole other issue. We have that with cleats in my house, but the stick-'em gloves, man, holy smokes. You don't even have to be a good receiver to catch a ball. So I actually would not have a problem if they did away with the gloves. I really wouldn't, but they'll never happen because they want offense.
Yeah, that's very true. And like baseball with the aluminum bats. I mean, the wood bats did come first, and then the aluminum bats were kind of a product of. So you had to go through some. Like I'm old enough that I used a wooden bat in Little League, and it's like we always used the team bat, and then finally, I remember I hit a home run, and my parents bought me my own bat. I'm like, yeah, I got my own bat now. Hit the home run. That's kind of the reward. So I've got this wooden bat. Guess what happens first game out?
Broke it.
Yeah. And that's why they have aluminum bats.
Well, and I mean, to be honest with you,
For little league and high school and college, obviously.
for sure. But they did away with it in the majors because it's freaking dangerous, man. Like
Well, they never had him in the majors. Yeah, I
well,
mean,
but you
yeah,
know what I'm saying.
a
Like,
major leaguer with a bat speed that those guys can generate would
right.
literally kill somebody hitting with those
Yes.
bats.
And to be honest with you, I'm surprised they still use them in college, if I'm being honest. Now they've deadened them and they've done some different things, obviously, but still, the bat speed that these college guys have is unbelievable. And if you get hit wrong with the ball coming off one of those bats, man, it's going to be serious.
Yeah, as to the question of would it be 162 games season if they
It's a
were
very random
just
number.
starting today, I don't know exactly what it would be, but part of the thing about, I guess maybe it's tougher is what he's saying is like it's tougher for fans to get invested because the season is so long now. NBA seasons are long too, but they're
Yeah.
still only 82 games, so you're talking about roughly half. But football being week to, it's basically because of the physicality and the owners. It's just, I don't know. I don't know if, like, would it be closer to 100 games if they were doing it today and you're playing, more like purely in the summer months as opposed to bleeding into November? Because,
Yeah.
the reason for everything right now is they get more TV revenue.
Absolutely.
And that's why they've got World Series games in November instead of October now.
Right. And and that's why they tried before the rain out to get all the World Series games in before Saturday and Sunday when football happens. I mean, let's be honest, that's why they didn't want to do it on the weekends.
All right. You want to get to some football questions?
I was worried there at first because it was a little slow starting, but I'll tell you what, man, the questions are coming in hot. So we got some good ones.
Yeah, we do. Have you seen one that you want to start with? Is there a particular one? I'll just do this before we
Oh, okay.
I'll go ahead and address another baseball question from Salty. I said Astros in 5, and I just felt like you only have so many lives if you're the Phillies. I thought that this was going to run out at some time. Like when you beat one of the best teams in baseball in the first round. Now, they were fortunate. They only had to beat the Padres in the second round because the Padres knocked off the Dodgers. But I just felt like, okay, it's one thing to get to the World Series going, an 87 win team. And, to get to the World Series, you fire your manager early.
I was going to say,
and the Astros just looked so damn good against the Yankees and against the Mariners too. And that's why I just thought that the Phillies' luck was going to run out. But so much for that. 5 home runs last night said otherwise.
I mean, it is amazing if you think about the fact that they did fire their manager in the middle of the season, and they've got an interim manager that took them to the World Series and potentially win the World Series. You want to talk about contract negotiation leverage? I mean, holy cow! That's a story.
Because they're talking about what if Thompson, by the way, University of Kansas alum, 1984. Just found that out this week. I didn't even know that. But
there it is.
The Phillies interim manager, how does he not get a contract at this point? Just getting to the World Series from where they were. He's got to get a contract. He's got to become a full-time guy. All right. Now let's do some football. But you're right. I obviously have no choice but to recant my Astros in 5 because there's no way they can win in 5 now.
No way that can happen.
That's right. All right, Charles Lynch, let's say Notre Dame wins out from here on out. How likely are there to be changes on the staff? This is kind of like the fallback to if Brian Kelly were to retire, at the end of this year, who would be your list of candidates? Because it never seemed like it was actually going to happen, but then, of course, it did.
Yeah, I know, right?
So I'll let you take this one first.
I mean, there's going to be changes on the staff regardless of whether they win out or not, because that's just how college football is. Okay. It's not going to be changes on the staff the way people want them to be necessarily. Like, I don't think the day the season's over, they're going to fire Tommy Rees, right? Or he's going to accept a different job.
Which, let's be honest, that's what this question
absolutely
is,
that's
right?
What this question is about.
Unless you say otherwise, Charles.
Now,
that's what this question is.
I've heard some rumblings that there is some discontent with some of the coaches on the staff at the moment, but those are rumblings. I don't know if there's any truth to that, those rumblings. But if I was a betting man, the chances of the exact same staff going from one year to the next are slim to none. I mean, you don't think Al Golden's looking for a head coaching job? You don't think he's looking for maybe a coordinator's job at the NFL level? I mean, we know Tommy Rees wants a coordinator's job at the NFL level. Some of these younger guys that are on the staff, maybe they get a coordinator, possibility or something along those lines. And maybe it's a guy that Marcus Freeman wants to keep around, but he gets a better opportunity someplace else. I mean, those
just
are
like
all
last year,
possibilities. Yes, exactly.
Two guys
He
that
had his staff, and it was
they had every intention of keeping two guys, but they both moved on and became offensive coordinators at other schools. You just don't know how it's going to shake out. Last year was definitely a huge shakeup to everybody, and
absolutely.
part of the whole keeping Marcus Freeman on, there was going to be all this continuity because there were going to be a majority of assistants. Then the next thing you know, it's a majority of guys coming from outside. And like to tuck into your point about discontent, that's bound to happen because
absolutely
these guys haven't worked together before. None of these guys have the closest thing that you have to guys working together is obviously Mickens and Freeman, and then Mickens and Mason back in Cincinnati.
And O'Leary was there for 1 year with Freeman because he was, the safeties coach.
Right.
Again,
that's true. I forgot about that.
It's not a ton.
Right. And then Rees was here, but that is still an arranged marriage to some extent.
For sure.
So,
and Rees was with He Stand before.
As a player.
I mean, so you never
there's
know how that's all going to
vibe. Than I thought, but still, there's just a lot of.
But there's a lot of moving parts. And there was
guys who don't. Yeah. Everyone who's working for Tommy Rees, I'm trying to everyone who's working for Tommy Rees is a new assistant coach.
Right.
So
exactly.
On this staff anyway. So
you're there's going to be changes. I mean, there just always is for whatever reason. Right. And I know Charles wants me to say that guys are going to get fired, but that's not necessarily going to be the case.
And I think a lot of it depends on, we'll get part of that answer Saturday night. Like, are they just going to pound their head into a wall? Those kind of things, because we'll go ahead to Salty's questions against Clemson's strong run defense. Do you run first to open the pass or pass first to open the run? I think you've got to figure out what's successful, but part of that to me is the short answer to the question is you can't just play the power run game that they've been playing against these other teams and think that that's going to succeed against Clemson. You have to be more diverse. They're going to have to find ways to throw the ball, kind of like we were touching on last night. Best way as far as I'm concerned, or an important way to do that, is using those running backs. But we've been talking about that for a while. The running backs have disappeared from the passing game. Yeah. I don't know. Does it reemerge Saturday night? I would hope so if you want to be successful.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. They're going to do both. It's to me, to be honest with you, Salty, it's kind of the chicken and an egg debate.
Right.
What comes first? The run to open up the pass or the pass to open up the run? You need both. You're going to need both to be successful. I don't care which one you run first, in the first series, or which one you run second or whatever. You're going to have to take what the defense gives you to a degree, but you're going to have to be able to run the ball too.
Yeah.
You have to. So
the only pass play I would want on my first play of the game, like if you're talking about, is line up in that I formation and go play action, to Udrick and throw something, otherwise they didn't have much success with Drew Pine throwing on first down last week. And in general, that's been an issue. But, again, it's like there are different things you can do with play action that aren't just straight fake it up the middle type stuff. A lot of it goes back to what we saw against North Carolina, though, where you're faking in one direction and then you've got wide receivers, tight ends moving in the other direction, or even a running back in the, so it's not just play action, but it's like some misdirection stuff with it to open things up, and again, the creativity has disappeared from this playbook, but this is the second best team, maybe even the best team, but Ohio State is ranked ahead of Clemson right now.
Sure.
This is one of the two best teams that they played all season. You're going to have to be more diverse than just power run football if you're going to beat them.
Yep, no question. You got to be diverse in the run game. You're going to have to be diverse in the passing game. You're going to have to stretch the field. I mean, you have to do all these things that we've been talking about. And by the way, that we have seen at one point or another at Notre Dame this year. I mean, it's not like it's completely foreign to this team. We've seen it. We just need to see it all at the same time, in the same game, in the same game plan. That's the big question mark going into this.
Yep. Gavin, I'd really like to see the Irish go with 12 personnel package that involves Mayer, Colsey, Tobias, and another tight end. Pick your poison, especially in the red zone. What's y'all's thoughts?
I mean, look, they're going to go 12 personnel. There's
You're
no
going to
doubt
see
about
12
that.
personnel.
There's no
based
doubt
on
about that.
history.
And we've seen the tall what they call it, the tall package, right? They had something similar out there. So I think you will see that.
Are you talking about the alleged 14 personnel? It wasn't actually 14, or is that something else?
No, they had Colsey and Merriweather and Jaden Thomas, I think, on the field at the same time with Mayer. And I thought that Marcus Freeman said something about a tall package or something along those lines. So, I mean, it's clear that they're kind of mixing up the packages, which I do like. I mean, they're trying to think outside the box a little bit, which is fantastic. You're going to see 12 personnel. Will you see 12 with Colsey and Tobias? I'm not sure, but you're going to see 12. That seems to be their favorite package, to be honest.
You're going to at some point, and I think that there are times that they're definitely blocking better out of 12 personnel. But again, I think like 12 made sense against Syracuse, the two tight end stuff, because this is the one of the few things that I think Greg McElroy hit in his analysis during the game is because of Notre Dame's size and because of the speed of Syracuse's defense and the fact that they, have that 3-3-5 look where they've got some pretty quick linebackers. Trying to run outside made no sense against them. Against a fast team, you want to pound it up the middle. Against a power team, which is more like Clemson, you're going to need to attack the perimeters. Now, Clemson has some fast linebackers as well, so it's not just like run outside. That's, you're always going to be successful, but you can't just line up and pound it. Like I think we'll probably see a lot of 11 personnel because they've done a lot of that this year as well. So, but I've, on repeated record as being a bigger fan of 21 personnel, which is all but disappeared from the offense.
Well, and I think if they're going to have to vary it, right? I mean, you're going to have to run inside, you're going to have to run outside, as to steal a phrase from Newt Rockney, right? We're going to go inside, we're going to go outside, and we're going to get them on the run, we're going to keep them on the run. You're going to have to go deep, you're going to have to go short, you're going to have to do all of these things, right? You can't just bang your head against the wall just doing one thing over and over, because Clemson is good enough to adjust, right? If you continuously go outside, they're going to adjust. You continuously go inside, they're going to adjust. You've got to be able to hit them when they're not ready for certain things. I mean, you have to be multiple. That's going to be the key here against a good defense.
I concur. Let's see. David wants to know how much pressure's on the coordinators Saturday.
I mean, there's pressure on the entire coaching staff. It's the number 4 team in the country. I mean, there's pressure on Marcus Freeman. There's pressure on the coordinators. I mean, I don't think it's any more than any other game, if I'm being honest with you. I think that they have to bring their best game. I think if Al Golden brings a game plan like he did to the first half of the Syracuse game, defense is going to be all right. If Tommy Rees can get back in a time machine and go back to the North Carolina game, I think the offense is going to be all right. So there doesn't have to be a lot of pressure on the coordinators. We've seen them do it. They just need to do it again.
That's it. They both called really good, offense, defense at times, but at other times there have been some slippages, and that's we know it's there. We just got to see it now. Like Al Golden, for the most part, called a really good game against Ohio State, and unfortunately, the offense couldn't sustain anything long enough. I do think that played into Ohio State, the long touchdown drive in the fourth quarter, and just the fact that Ohio State was able to come back and win in the zero coverage obviously doesn't help either. But I think that the fact that Notre Dame's offense couldn't compete enough in that game ultimately led to the way things turned out. But look, that's the best evidence that we have that Notre Dame can play with a really good team of this caliber. So this is the second opportunity since then. So I don't know that there's pressure. It's just that, because again, like if we're talking about pressure from are they fearing for their jobs and that kind of stuff, I don't know if there's as much of that internally as,
Right.
is
Not
boiling
on
up
one
from the
game.
outside.
Not on
Yeah,
one game. I mean, that's
right. That's
that's
going to be evaluated over the
yeah,
course of 12 to 13.
right. Absolutely agree with that.
And,
Absolutely.
the relationships that coach and, everybody else has and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Ian says, how do the position coaches learn all the plays that Tommy Rees has? Is there difficulty there that keeps Tommy Rees from letting position coaches have more control over personnel choices?
Number one, it's their job to know the playbook. So
You have no choice. You only must do it.
I mean, that's their job, okay, is to know the playbook. And they have to know the playbook in order to teach their players the playbook. So it's just like a teacher. I got to know my stuff before I can teach my students their stuff. It's the same thing when you're coaching. You've got to know, you've got to understand the drills that you're running. You have to and how they apply to the game. You have to understand the playbook and how to relay that to your players. I said students, your players. I mean that's what it's all about. I mean, you have to
Students to an
know.
extent.
They are. And playbooks are interesting because it's not like you've got 750 individualized plays. It's formation, it's tags, it's concepts, it's different things. And it's like a math class. They kind of all build off of each other. So if you understand the foundation, then you can understand tags and you can understand how one thing goes to another. And you throw in like a motion or a shift or it all builds on each other. So it's not like you have to memorize 700 different plays. You have to understand concepts and then how they build off of each other. So
Right.
yes, they can do it. They're all adults.
There's like a base play, and then, like you said, each guy
Right.
has a piece within. Like when you hear 65 razor, X curl, Z fly, that kind of thing. The X is the X receiver who's going to run a curl.
Right.
The Z is going to run a fly. That kind of thing. So there's it's to someone who hasn't been deep in a college playbook, it would probably be. It would seem like a foreign language, I think, if you were sitting there trying to learn it. But these guys have been it's basically a part of their life, because they all played college football and
right.
And some of them obviously even in the NFL. So
And
they've been there before.
If somebody like Tommy Rees sat down with you and if you have any knowledge of football to begin with, right? If you have a cursory knowledge of football and you understand the makeup of an offense, if Tommy Rees sat down with you and explained his offense, he's going to start at the beginning, the base stuff, and then you'll see how it builds off of that, right? I mean, that's how any offense is built, whether you're running the triple option or whether you're running spread or run and shoot or any of that stuff. There's always a base, and then it just builds off of that. So,
yeah.
And again, that's what these guys do for a living. They're making six figures plus to memorize a playbook. They can do it.
Right.
I don't mean to talk down to anybody. That's not
memorize a playbook and teach it to their players.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Not make it more complicated than it has to be. Well, but no. So Irish in Ohio says, if Notre Dame wins out, do you consider the season a success?
Nope. No way. This season is not a success when you lose to Marshall and Stanford, period. Now, is it as much a success as you can make it at this point? Well, yeah, of course, and there's positive things you can take from it. But if you told me at the beginning of the season that they lose to Stanford and Marshall, it's not a successful season. I'm sorry. You dropped the ball big time against those two opponents, period. Yes. And we talked about it yesterday, right, Sean, when Jesse said if they can beat Clemson and USC, does it erase those two losses? No. To me, it does not erase those two losses in any way, shape, or form. It's great that you won those games. You can build off of that, and it can be great, but it doesn't erase the two losses.
No, I completely agree. And I think just what you said, it's from where the season is now, if you win out, that's a good building point because then you're going to finish 9-3. But it can't be a success because if you beat Clemson and USC with that narrow loss to Ohio State, all you had to do is take care of business, and you're right in there, possibly in the college football playoff.
Absolutely.
Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but you're definitely going to be in a New Year's Six Bowl. Had a really good chance to be in the playoffs, so you can't consider it a success. It's a consolation prize. Now, again, like when we look at where Marcus Freeman is as a head coach and the lumps he has taken to this
Sure.
point, if, and it's still a big if, there are 4 games left.
For sure. And 2 big ones.
If they win those 4 games, it is at least a good sign
Yes.
that maybe some things have been,
Absolutely.
righted and that kind of stuff, redirected and he's definitely grown as a coach over the course of the year. But I don't think it could be considered a success because of what you said. You still lost at home to 2
Right.
stinker teams.
Absolutely. And like you said, it shows growth in Marcus Freeman. It shows growth in the staff and this team and all of those different things. Again, you can take it and you can not spin it, but you can find positive things about it. I'm not saying that it's not positive. I'm saying it's not a success. Okay.
Right. If we're going to look at the entirety of the season,
correct,
it's not a success. But if you're looking at it as kind of a springboard,
sure,
from where the season began and where it is right now, you might, you can, again, it's a good springboard.
Absolutely.
There are good things that you can take from it.
Yep.
But big picture, I don't think you can call it a successful season because of the fact that you lost 2 games you should have won handily at home. And if you win those games, you're in a New Year's Six Bowl slam dunk, maybe even in the college football playoff.
If they win those,
because Ohio State's going to be, as long as Ohio State wins out, and we'll address that one next. But as long as Ohio State wins out, they're going to be in the playoff.
Yes.
So because of that, and you lost a close game at Ohio State, just like with the losses to Georgia in the past, if you kept winning and took care of your business, worst case, you were probably going to be 5th. At
worst case.
To be honest with you. Because again, if Ohio State beats Michigan, they're in the playoff. They're going to be undefeated.
Right.
You're going to be sitting there with a really good case to be included in the playoff in that scenario.
If Notre Dame, loses to Ohio State, which they did, and then they win out, and you're sitting at 11-1. First of all, the first college football playoff selection that came out last night, you're in the top 5, top 6. You're right there knocking on the door of the top 4, and 2 of those teams could potentially lose this weekend. Okay, so you're right there in the conversation for the college football playoff. Then you're saying you win out, so now you're 11-1. Your only loss is a close loss to Ohio State, probably their closest game of the season of an undefeated Ohio State. You're in. Because I just don't see that many number one. I don't see that many undefeated teams at the end of the season, right? And Notre Dame's resume will say that they beat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ranked teams when they played them.
Yeah.
BYU, Syracuse, North Carolina, Clemson, and USC. 5 ranked teams that you played and defeated in your, come on. And you played a 6th. So you're 5-1 against ranked teams. So half of your games were against ranked teams, and you were 5-1, and you're 11-1 at the end of the year. You're in. I'm sorry, you're in. So, but that's the pipe world that we wished we lived in, and it is not one that we currently live in. So, in 2 years, if they win a national championship, nobody cares that Notre Dame went 9-3 this year. Nobody. It's fine. Right. It was a great learning experience for Marcus Freeman. Look where we are now. So go win a national championship, and we can forget about losing to Marshall and Clemson and Stanford.
Yeah. You can say the end of the season is successful, but I don't think you can call
but not
it
the whole thing. Yeah, no way.
Not when you lose those 2 games at home. Ohio State and Michigan shaping up to be a well of a game. Do you pull for one of them or hope for a giant sinkhole swallowing the stadium?
Well,
I'll vote for the sinkhole.
The sinkhole would be fantastic because not only are you losing 2 of the programs, but you're also losing a bunch of obnoxious fans.
Yes.
So that would be kind of a win-win-win situation. But since that's not going to happen, I will be pulling for Ohio State. Not 100%. I will be pulling for Ohio State. No part of me will be rooting for Michigan. Sorry.
Yeah, I have always taken the tack that when these 2 teams play, I pull for the team that's going to screw up the other season the most. But if they end up playing undefeated, obviously, somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose, and it's just. I suppose in that case I would pull for Ohio State, but it is really tough.
It is.
That's why I vote for the sinkhole.
I vote for the sinkhole too. That's number 1 by far.
Tyler wants to know: are you going to wear your same sweatshirt and hat from last Saturday?
Yep. Absolutely. I feel like I have fallen into the fandom, man. I feel like what I wear will affect the outcome of the game. So I will 100%. Not only will I wear it on the show, I'm wearing it to the stadium. Okay. So I'm wearing it in the press box, hoodie, hat, the whole deal, man. So I'm going all out.
Let me see. Mr. 2.0, true or false? Marcus Freeman and Brian Kelly have had a conversation in the last 4 weeks.
I mean, I'm not standing next to Marcus Freeman all day, but
Yeah.
I'm going to go with false. There's
I,
no
I
chance
did
that
see
happened.
Kelly did a podcast with somebody.
Okay.
I just saw it was on Twitter, like some of the quotes and stuff like that. But he had, vague sort of general things, good things to say about Notre Dame, basically trying not to say anything so he doesn't stick his foot in his mouth, which for him is like
That's maturity.
step in the
Like,
right direction.
oh, no doubt about that.
Foot and mouth disease. We are not Marshall. Is Marcus Freeman the anti-BK? He wins all the big games, but stinks up the place against lesser foes.
Well, he hasn't won a big game yet. He did lose to Ohio State. I mean,
Yeah,
I think we all probably feel like it was a closer game than if BK was here, but we don't know that. And he didn't win. And so you're kind of splitting hairs at that point. BK lost his fair share. Hold on.
you say,
BK
let's not
lost his
forget
fair
about
share
Tulsa
of
and
crappy
Navy multiple
teams.
times.
Yeah,
That's right.
So, he doesn't have
South
a
Florida.
sparkling resume.
That's right. It's not like he never lost to any bad teams.
Right. So I don't want to say he's the anti-BK because you have to win those low games, right? And I think once Marcus Freeman is on solid ground as a head coach, that is going to happen. Now, there's still no excuse for it not happening this year, but I think he'll be fine in that regard. But you have to take your hat off to BK. He did win all of those games that he was supposed to win.
At the end.
Yes, at the end, post 2016. Because 2016, I don't know if anybody remembers, was a dumpster fire.
Yes. Major. I mean, oh my goodness.
It's horrible.
Brent, for the love of God, find Lindsey. He's always open. What do you think of Clemson's secondary? I think it's something that Notre Dame can exploit if the quarterback is capable of seeing open receivers and hitting them.
Yes.
And I don't know what to say.
The last game, he didn't play a whole lot. Now, it's supposed to be because he was sick or whatever, or he was coming off of an illness.
Even though he played special teams.
Right, which is puzzling. I will say that. And
but Colsey, I mean,
yes, he stepped up.
Colsey outproduced what Lindsey was producing.
Right.
So
he did. And I thought that Tobias Merriweather blocked very well. I thought Lorenzo Styles blocked very well. So, I mean, the guys that were in there did a good job. So, again, the lack of depth in the wide receiver room still hasn't bothered me yet this season.
Marcel, what coach came with Coach Freeman when he came to Notre Dame? Wasn't it O'Leary? No. It was no.
Nope,
Mickens was already here before him.
Yeah, he came solo.
Yeah.
He did not come with anyone. It wasn't like the situation before 2 defensive coordinators ago where he brought the linebacker coach. Like, that's not how that went. So he came by himself. Now, he had a relationship, obviously, with Mike Mickens because they coached together at Cincinnati, but Mickens was a year prior. And I believe O'Leary was a grad assistant, or was he a grad assistant? But he was known by the staff. I know that. Like, I want to say he was a grad assistant at Notre Dame and got promoted to the safeties coach, but I don't know that for 100% certain. I'll kind of look that up as we go here.
Yeah, that sounds right. I'm trying, like, all those, the titles, like, that's where O'Leary kind of came from, more, I think, like you said, grad assistant and kind of worked his way into being an assistant. But he was already here as well.
So he was a grad assistant at Georgia State, graduate assistant at Georgia Tech, or Georgia State and Florida Tech. Then he was at Notre Dame. He was a defensive analyst. He was a grad assistant, and then he's the defensive backs coach, so safeties. So, yeah, he was from Notre Dame from 2018 until the present.
Brent wants to know if Pine is capable of playing his best game if given all receivers step up and raise their level as well. In other words, do we have a shot at beating Clemson?
Well, I mean, it's bigger than all of that, but at the same time, we talked about the fact that I thought all of the offensive skill players, the offensive line, they all took a step forward against Syracuse, except for the quarterback. If they all continue doing what they're doing, and the quarterback takes his game to another level, back to where he was against, North Carolina, even BYU. If we get BYU Drew Pine, Notre Dame has a great shot at beating Clemson. That's what I'll say. What are you
I agree
chuckling
with
about
that.
over there?
I was reading one of the comments. That's what I was laughing at. I
Okay.
wasn't laughing at what you said. I'll put it up. I got to start here so it doesn't go away. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Is he capable of it? Yes, but for some reason,
Right.
it's disappeared for 3 games in a row, and it is very concerning because if he plays like he's played the last 3 games, it's not going to be a game worth watching, unfortunately, Saturday night. You cannot play. Now, this is not Clemson of like 4 years ago, when they were peak Clemson with
Sure.
those defenses, but it's still a good defense. There are things that can be exploited with that secondary, but it's upon Drew Pine to be able to, again, to hit the passes because there have been plenty of open guys. And
Yes.
where he's really gotten into trouble is, again, like more of this zone stuff where they're dropping 8 guys into coverage and they're just rushing 3. And I've got to think that Clemson can feel pretty comfortable. Well, I guess the matchup with like I was looking at, like defensive line versus Pine, but that it's going to be a big matchup. Can Clemson get that kind of pressure? Where are they going to bring pressure for? Like, are they going to be, how's that going to shape up between their defensive lineman and Notre Dame's offensive line? But
yeah, absolutely.
Pine's got to have a game. He doesn't have to have the best game of his life. He just has to be consistent, not make stupid mistakes, hit guys when they're open, not lock in on Michael Mayer. Those are all things that he's been doing recently, but they've also got to give him a run game.
Yes.
And as we talked about yesterday, they've got to give him some layups he can hit early on to get his confidence going. I think that is such a big part of it for Drew Pine, is just getting some early confidence and not feeling like he's, kind of playing catch up the whole game. Get him some early confidence. I think that's huge for him.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I, like I said, I haven't been upset with the wide receiver room because I don't think any of the shortcomings so far for this season have been their fault, to be honest. And I mean, they're getting open, they're not getting found. Yes, have there been some drops by, Lorenzo Styles? Absolutely. No question about it, right? But there's also been plenty of opportunities that the quarterback has missed where the wide receivers have been open.
Yes.
If all open wide receivers are hit, even 80% of the open wide receivers are hit, Notre Dame is 7-1 right now.
And I'm not,
period.
I don't think any of us are picking on Drew Pine by saying this, but, Lorenzo Styles has 4 drops. There are many more than 4 plays that Drew Pine has tried to force a ball to Michael Mayer when someone else was completely uncovered. Or, then like if you add on, like the overthrow to Lindsey, throwing the ball, at Lorenzo Styles' feet, all the, like easy passes that are there for him. It's just like he's trying too hard. Again, I think it comes down to getting some confidence early. And I just really, like they got it, they were running the ball so well. Then all of a sudden the second half comes last week and it's like, oh, now let's throw on first down without even really using play action. If I remember right, it's like, what? I don't get again, it's a recurring theme. It's not all on Drew Pine, but this is what I was laughing at earlier. I'm not sure. We are not Marshall. Can we get Sean on a post game? Bring him in for the shenanigans. I don't know. One, I've got other things that I have to do with the post game. So
that's correct. That is correct.
Yes, I have writing assignments and press conference coverage. But are there a lot of shenanigans in the post game? Or
well, there's a lot of bitching and moaning usually. So
I know that.
But I will say, and I need to remember to do this. There might be a new face on the post game show. So you need to remind me after the show. I need to reach out.
Is it like a well-known face?
I think it's a well-known face. Yes.
Okay.
Very well-known. My opinion.
Interesting. We kind of asked Brent's. We kind of answered this that Brent has. Is Pine capable of playing his best game, given all receivers? I think he's capable of it.
Right.
Just has to do it.
Just has to do it. Exactly. Clemson secondary is very vulnerable. You can beat Clemson secondary. Wake Forest did it the entire game. You can do this. Like, it can happen, right? But we need to see it. It just needs to happen. I don't.
Right. There is no try. There is only do.
You got it.
That's what it comes down to. He's just got to do it. That's what it is. Marcel says, "Hey guys, I think Brent Smith is right. Freeman brought Chad Bowden."
He did, but you guys asked us what coaches he brought. Chad Bowden is not a coach. He works in the office.
Right.
So that is accurate, 100% accurate. He did come, and he's been a huge asset to this program. He's just not a coach. So that's why I didn't say him, but you're 100% correct.
Right. I just got another Brent one. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit like all these Brent ones at once, but I mean Brent's got some good stuff. So
yeah.
If Notre Dame finishes 3-1 bowl victory, do you consider 2022 a success?
Nope. It's not a success. I mean,
go back on that.
No, not a success. Are there positives you can take from it? Yes. I mean, I don't want to repeat myself, but it's not a success. No, I cannot use that word.
Yeah. I would just go back to what we were saying before. If that happens, even 3-1 means you're splitting with USC and Clemson, which means that you're going to finish 8-4, and then you're gonna, if you win a bowl game, you're going to be playing in a lower tier bowl game. So theoretically, you should win that game. But then
Music City Bowl, baby, Nashville, here we come.
I mean, again, it's a good ending to what started off very poorly, but I just don't think you can call the whole season successful.
Right.
I think it's what it's really going to be is Marcus Freeman's learning curve. And if they're able to pull that off with another win against a ranked team and potentially yet another ranked team in that bowl game, there's still good things that you can take from that, but you can't call the whole season a success because you lost at home to Marshall and Stanford.
It's lipstick on a pig, people. Like, I mean, you can't you can't lose to Marshall and Stanford and call your season a success. I don't care what else happens.
Vince, you just had the walk off. Lipstick on a pig. That's all you had to say. Lipstick on a pig. Charles wants to know if we think the 2023 starting quarterback is on the current roster.
This is going to piss a lot of people off, and I apologize, but yes, he is. He is on the roster, and he sits in the booth for every game.
I mean, he could be on the field Saturday night, but not necessarily on the Notre Dame roster.
Look at you. That's interesting.
I'm just saying
quite the statement, pal.
If Klubnik, is what he's supposed to be, and there's already talk about Klubnik and everything else, who's to say that Uiagalelei doesn't transfer someplace next
that's
season?
A hard pass. I don't want him.
You're not confident? Tony can turn him into a high-end quarterback?
If I wanted a statue, I would just go out and chisel out the Lou Holtz statue from outside the stadium and just put it right behind, the offensive line.
Statue won some games last year.
I know, and he's winning a lot of games this year. They're 8-0, but yeah, that's a pass for me.
Who's 8-0?
DJ.
Oh, okay.
I was talking about Jack Cone. I'm sorry.
Not the same statue. I'm talking about in this different statue.
He's collecting an unemployment check.
Right.
As much as I would love to have Jack Cone at the moment, but say la vie.
Milton Fan 15, do you think we have issues with home games because T. Reese can't game due to all the 2023 quarterback recruits he's hosting for official visits?
So in other words, he's too busy hosting recruits to pay attention to the game, I think is what he's getting at. Well, then he's doing poorly at both. So
he's not hosting them while the game is going on.
No, he's not. He's hosting them during the day, and that's great. But here's the problem. No one's committed in the 23 class. So he has failed miserably in that regard. And he has pretty much failed at home as a coordinator as well. So that's not a good ratio for me right now. If he was winning at one or the other, then okay. But he's not. So that's a problem right now.
Oh boy, here's the $1 million question from Irish in Ohio. Would you say the offensive struggles are more coaching or quarterback? You can't say both. You have to pick one.
My dinner just arrived.
Ah,
All right. So I'm gonna go.
I know where I'm leaning.
I hate to do this to Drew, but I'm gonna go with quarterback.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just think he has. There have been game plan issues. Don't get me wrong. There have been, but he's also not completing the stuff that he should be completing. So if he does that, they win by a bigger margin in some game. I think if he is a little bit more efficient, and I'm not asking him to be, a 5-star, but I think if he's a little bit more efficient, I think this offense is humming a little bit better right now. So I'm going to go quarterback.
I'm going to go the other direction because even though I agree, like if you look at Stanford specifically, there are a half dozen passes in that game that if he hits, the game is a different outcome. They end up winning that game. But at the same time, I still feel like the offensive coordinator has to put him in better positions and get the best skill position talent and utilize that talent to the best of its capabilities. And I don't feel like they've done that. The running backs, Michael Mayer is an All-American tight end, but he is one of 4, 5 tight ends in the room. The running back group as a position, those 3 guys, it's the best position group that they have. And
top to bottom, yeah.
They're not utilizing it to its full capabilities the way they were against North Carolina and BYU. If they do more of that, I think that it gives Drew Pine, again, like we talk about getting him more confident, doing things that give him more layups to hit, those kind of things. I just feel like they've gone away from utilizing. I'm not saying it's the only thing, but they've gone away from utilizing the running backs consistently in the passing game. And that's when he was at his best, when the running backs were more involved in the passing game. So I put, again, there's fingers to point on both sides, but I put more of it on the guy calling the shots to put the quarterback that he has in a better position. Because again, if you go back to Tyler Buchner, when Tyler Buchner was the quarterback, he could have been doing the same thing. Like we said, Buchner could have been running the same offense Drew Pine was running, but they ran a completely different offense for him. There needs to be one offense.
No, he messed that up. He was trying to use Tyler Buchner as the entire offense, running, throwing, the whole thing, and that just wasn't the way to go at all. That was very poor, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah, and the Marshall loss isn't on Drew Pine.
No, it's not. That game was lost before he came in.
Yes, exactly.
No doubt about it.
Exactly. True or false? Lincoln Riley kicks puppies and pushes down old ladies. Thanks in advance for your objective take. IB, peace be with you.
Well, he can pay for their medical bills, so
he might be at USC, but I'll say false. So just because I have to actually respond to this, I guess.
I'll let you respond.
Yeah, and I was trying to block some of the bots there.
I already got one. I think I got them.
You already get one?
Yeah.
Right. It's like pulling out the fly swatter.
I know, seriously.
All right, I'm going to save this. We just got a super chat. I'm going to save that for rapid fire.
Okay.
I think.
Oh, my.
Ian, if you were a wide receiver, would you rather get 2 catches on deep shots or 6 on shorter routes, i.e. quantity or quality / big plays?
Dude, I'm a burner. I'm going deep. You're hitting me deep, and we're going to strike up the fight song. 2 big catches is 2 touchdowns, baby.
Right.
That's how, boom. That's what we're doing.
That's right. Nobody remembers those little slants and digs and comebacks. It's the Tobias Merriweather deep post that everyone remembers, right?
He's caught one ball.
That's right. He's got one ball, and that's the one everybody talks about. It's like a mythical catch is what it is. That's right. That's right. Take the quantity every time.
Absolutely.
Where was another one that I just saw? There's a couple.
That's a good question, though. That's a fun one.
Yeah,
those are fun questions, baby. I like that.
Yeah.
Not when
Tyler
the
wants to
season
know how
starts
we'd rank
next.
the Auburn job. I mean, it's in the SEC. It's a
Yeah.
good job. There's already talk that, like Lane Kiffin, would Lane Kiffin leave Ole Miss to go to Auburn and that kind of stuff. I mean, they've won a national championship in the last 15
Yeah,
years.
not that long ago.
Yeah.
I think it's a good job. I mean, you're in Alabama, so you're in fertile recruiting ground. You're always going to come in second to Alabama when it comes to recruiting. I get that. But get somebody in there who's a hustler, man. You can get a ton of talent down there at Auburn. You've got the fact, again, like you said, you're in the SEC, so you've already got a leg up. You're going to be getting all kinds of money there. You've got all kinds of support. I think it's a pretty good job. I really do. It's if you're going to rank it's a top 25 job, I would say.
sure.
Wouldn't you
For
say?
sure.
Yeah. And it might even be top 20. I'm saying top 25 because I want to make sure, I'm where I'm at. But, it's a good job. If I'm
I'd have to sit back,
right.
It's one of the top jobs still, I think, in the SEC.
I agree.
Alabama, and let's be honest now. Alabama was a traditional name, but Nick Saban turned it back into a good job. Even part of it has to do with, honestly, who's there and sometimes who's writing the checks. But
that's not wrong.
Alabama, LSU. I mean, Tennessee, when Phil Fulmer there, was a good job for a long time, and Johnny Majors before that, but it's been some lean years in between what they finally got this year. So, I consider Auburn a better job year in and year out than I consider Tennessee, so
right.
I think you're right. It might even be top 20, not just, you might be able to, kind of cut those other 5 off, not even top 25, probably in the top 20.
I hate to say it, but if, Dion goes to Auburn, I've heard that is a possibility, and I'm sure his son's going to come with him. I mean, they could be really good really fast, to be honest with you, because Dion's going to bring in talent. And I know that he's kind of doing his thing down at Jackson State, and there's talent gap and all of that. But at the same time, man, number one, he can recruit. Number two, he's got a name. And number three, you give him the resources at Auburn. I'm telling you right now, Auburn can compete sooner than later.
I concur with that for sure. Salty wants to know, given the way the season's played out, will Ohio State or Clemson be the biggest game?
Well, I was going to say both teams were undefeated when you played them. The way it's played out, they lost to Ohio State. If they can beat Clemson, Clemson's the bigger game.
It becomes the bigger game, right?
Absolutely. So there you go. There's my answer.
Yeah. I mean, if they lose to Clemson, it's just another loss and a disappointing season because it's already lost number 4.
Right.
And then you're staring at the possibility of loss number 5 in a couple of weeks. So, yeah, I think if they win, it's definitely Clemson.
No doubt.
I'm not, unless I'm missing something, I don't know what other way we can look at that. Does Tennessee this year feel like 2019 LSU flash in the pan? I guess, it's so hard to judge in the moment, but like Hendon Hooker, Virginia Tech transfer, so they obviously had to get him to be a part of that, but they've got the best offense in the SEC, and the transfer portal is just, especially for these other programs, it's not as big a factor for Notre Dame unless guys leave. Incoming transfer portal guys are not as big a factor, but for all these other state schools around the country, that portal is such a huge thing. So I'm really impressed with what Heupel's done in a pretty short amount of time, because he was, again, like with where Tennessee has been with the ups and downs, and, the athletic director, Danny White, brought him over from UCF when he came in, and it's pretty impressive what they've been able to do. Are they going to be able to sustain it? That's, man, I mean,
I think the nail on the head for me, the difference for me from this Tennessee team to the LSU team is coaching. I mean, I trust Josh Heupel more than I trust the Gumbo King.
That's a good point.
I mean, I just
because
feel
the Gumbo King had a lot of talent on that roster.
He did.
Like Tennessee didn't start with the talent on the roster like Orgeron started.
And he also had one heck of an offensive coordinator who left after that season was over too. And he's the reason they won that national championship, not Eddie O, right? And so, I mean, Ed did his thing. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's still the head coach, but at the same time, he didn't have success before or after Brady showed up. So I feel like he was more the reason for the success. He was the reason for the offensive explosion, etc. I mean, I feel like the coaching is more significant at Tennessee with Heupel.
I agree. Here's one from Domer since birth. Gents, do you believe Kelly knew of the struggles that could arise this year with certain aspects of the roster, quarterback, linebacker, and got out of town timely, intentionally, cashed out his chips early?
Like 2%. I mean, I think that might have been a very, 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 very small percentage of why he left. He left because he felt he was undervalued and underpaid and wasn't getting another raise. And he found a school that was going to give him more money. So he left, period. That's what it was. He checked out halfway through last year because he was told he wasn't going to get another raise until something changed.
Right.
He's pissed. And so he started shopping around. He found somebody to give him a big paycheck.
Maybe that's the thing too, is like every time he got that little, kind of tingle, it's like, go ask for another raise.
Yeah.
Like, can I go to mom and dad and ask for that allowance raise? And it's like, look, kid, just do your chores. You've come to us for enough raises in your allowance. Just do your job now and quit coming to me and asking for more money. We just gave you more money,
Right.
Maybe your girlfriend, if your girlfriend had, like lesser taste, you wouldn't need so much money, I don't know.
But yeah, I don't.
But I agree with what you're saying. I don't think that it has as much to do with that. I know that's kind of become a popular theory, like when you look at how things have gone this year. I think this year is still more about first-year head coach, growing pains, learning on the job, compared to a guy who was a 30-year head coach. I think that Brian Kelly would have figured out a way, to make this work and the foundation, because, for one thing, if Brian Kelly is the head coach, Al Golden's not the defensive coordinator.
Correct.
And other guys on this staff, you don't know if they would have been attracted to Brian, like who would have come, who would have gone.
Sure.
The staff composition, probably at least 4 different spots would look different right now. Like Harry Hiestand wouldn't be here.
No, that's a guarantee.
Jeff Quinn would probably now that would have, potentially been an issue. Like would Dell Alexander still be here?
Probably.
So like things were going to look a lot different. How much difference that makes, I don't know. But I don't think it was necessarily him kind of examining this roster and deciding that was the time to, to make the move. I agree. It's about paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's about him wanting to be loved.
Appreciated. Yeah.
Yeah. He wants to be loved. He wants to be patted on the back. He wants all this, that, he wants to be the center of attention. And he wasn't getting that anymore. He was the old dog.
Come on, Milton fan. I said it.
He said it was the best rant ever as well, by the way. Really? So, yeah.
All right. Well, Vince, we've been at this for a while. Are you ready for rapid fire?
I'm so ready. I may or may not have a ham and cheese grinder upstairs as well. So I'm excited.
Where do I get one of those?
I know, right?
Right.
Mancino's is the answer.
We've got some more questions from the chat that will work into rapid fire.
Beautiful.
But let's start with this. That. Fill in the blank. I feel blank about Saturday's Notre Dame Clemson game.
Cautiously optimistic. I feel like they have the talent, obviously, to do it. I feel like I've seen the light on a lot of these position groups. I feel like they can do it. They just need to be up and they need to be firing on all cylinders. Is it possible? Yes. I think Clemson has come back to the pack a little bit. They are, I want to say they're one of the worst undefeated teams in the country, but that's not even all that true because they're 3-0 against top 25 teams so far, and they're the only ones with 3 wins in the college football rankings. So there is that. But at the same time, I just feel like this is not the team that Notre Dame has played in the past. And so they've got a great shot at winning this game. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I'll have on the white hoodie and the white hat. So how could they lose? How could they lose?
I feel prudently bullish. I don't know. I mean,
okay,
because that's really not much different than cautiously optimistic, but that's kind of how I feel as well. I feel like they can compete in this game because I feel confident in the defense mostly. I feel confident that the defense can at least give this team a chance to win Saturday
Absolutely.
night. Like they can keep them in it, and from there, it's
Yes.
just a matter of, hey, like you can't count on pump blocks all the time, but
Right.
can the special teams make one play? If the special teams can make one play per game, whether it's a pump block, kick return, whatever it happens to be, and the offense can just find its flow, do its thing, I think they've got a chance. I'm not saying
Yeah.
they're going to win, but again, this is not like as Marcus Freeman said, this is not David versus Goliath. This
Yeah.
is a game
Right.
that Notre Dame should have every right to feel like they can compete with these guys Saturday night.
And I feel like the defense and the special teams at separate opportunities are going to give the offense good field position. The offense needs to take advantage of that. If they can take advantage of that, whether it's a low scoring game or otherwise, they can win this game. But I feel like the defense and the special teams are going to put the offense into a good spot. I do. They need to capitalize. It can't be a field goal. It's got to be a touchdown. Got to score a touchdown in the red zone.
So last week we talked about whether Audric Estime will lead Notre Dame in rushing this season. Right? So after seeing his performance Saturday, because we were, a little unsure if that would actually happen. After seeing his performance Saturday against Syracuse, do you buy or sell him leading the team in rushing?
I think I sold it last time, and I said Logan Diggs. And based on the usage last week, they have obviously regained their faith in Audric Estime, which I absolutely love, by the way. I mean, you and I talked about it in the pregame show. They need to put him out there. And I was like, babe, you know what? Why not even start him? And they did. And I think my prediction of the fact that Tommy Reese was listening to the show during warmups was accurate. I think it happened. Right. They started him, and it paid off. 20 carries, 125 yards. I mean, he did his thing, right? I think he ends up being the leading rusher. I think he's the one that they're going to lean on when they need the tough yards. And I think he has the ability to not break one and like go 90 or go 80 or something like that, like Kyron Williams did 2 years ago against Clemson. But he's got enough ability to break one and get and peel off 25 or 30 yards, if not more, right? So I think that he will be the leading rusher when it's all said and done, as long as he doesn't fumble again and they lose confidence in him.
Yeah, and that's the only reason that we thought that maybe he wouldn't was because of the fact that he got benched for fumbling against UNLV. But what do? They came right out, first 2 plays of the game, I formation, boom, boom, 2 carries, 9 yards, sent a message to him that we are confident in you. We're going to stick with you. And, to his credit, he backed it up. He secured the ball really well. He was very consciously
yes, he was
securing the football. You could see that, and you could see Syracuse really consciously trying to strip it from him as well. He's got like a 140-yard lead on Logan Diggs right now, so he extended his lead, after last week by a little bit. So based on what we saw last week, unless the fumbleitis comes back, I think there's every reason to believe Audric Estime is going to end up being the leading rusher for the Irish.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Fill in the blank. The first college football playoff rankings are blank.
Perplexing.
I know you did a whole show last night.
Yeah, I mean, but they're still perplexing. I mean, I said this last night. They got the top 4 right, and at the end of the day, that's what you want. You want the top 4 to be correct, and they basically use like 7 through 25 to prop up their other decisions. That's what it feels like.
Yep.
And that's exactly what they did. And I saw some people talking about, how is LSU 10 and blah, blah, blah. They're 10 because they play Alabama this weekend, and they want that to be a top 10 matchup. And if Alabama wins, they got a top 10 win on their resume, right? If LSU wins, then they deserve to be where they're at, right? And so it's all to make the other stuff look correct. I think they got the top 4 right at the moment. In the moment, right now, on November 1st, last night, they got the top 4 correct. Those are the top 4 I would have, if I'm being honest, right? The rest, it just props up the rest. So, I mean, it's fine. It is what it is. But the bottom, I would say 20 to 25 are an absolute joke.
Yeah, and, I agree with what you're saying. They got the top right, but ultimately, I think the biggest thing to remember in this is, this is a TV show at this point. This is about getting some eyeballs, on the TVs on Tuesday night. That's why they do these reveals on Tuesday night, and it gets the conversation going that night and the next day. People are talking about it, and the more even if they're criticizing the committee and the playoff and the the process and the whole thing, people are talking about it. And, the ultimate thing is regardless of what these rankings look like today, the day after the first rankings came out, it's all going to end up taking care of itself
Always
in the
does.
end.
Always does.
Right. I mean, as you said, Tennessee and Georgia are playing this weekend. LSU and Alabama are playing this weekend.
Right.
Someone's going to lose those games. Ohio State and Michigan are going to play in a couple of weeks. Thanksgiving, I guess that's 3 weeks away, but Thanksgiving weekend, like they always do. That's going to take care of itself, so like these teams are going to pick each other off along the way. So like I can't get too worked up over what they look like on the night of the first reveal. And again, it's like a reality show almost. But you're definitely right about, and we talked about this, about how, could Notre Dame end up showing up in the bottom of the top 25 to kind of, prop up Ohio State even more.
Absolutely.
I don't think Ohio State needs that much propping up, and Notre Dame didn't show up in there. But, that's, it's too much to get worked up this soon, because again, there are so many games to be played in the month of November.
Yeah. Big games too. I mean,
and even this weekend for that.
Notre Dame plays 2 top 10 teams over the next, 4 weeks. So
I mean,
they're going to have a lot to say.
That's right. Notre Dame could affect the college football playoff.
Absolutely. This starting, in a couple of days. There's no doubt about it, because if Notre Dame beats Clemson, they're probably on the outside looking in.
Yep.
Because of the way Notre Dame season's gone. Sorry.
Speaking of which, fill in the blank. It's blank that former Notre Dame receiver Chris Fink tweeted this the other day. Can you keep a 3-loss Notre Dame team out of the playoffs?
I mean, don't ask me such an easy question. Can you keep them out? Yeah. Not only can you keep them out of the playoff, you can keep them out of the top 25, because they don't belong into that either. So, yes. Come on, Finky. Like, that is such a homer take, because you were on the team and all
I'm
of that.
trying to figure out this. Like, this can't be serious, right? He has to be joking about that.
He has a Notre Dame degree, Sean.
Right.
Like, he's smarter than that, right?
That's right. But, in 3 years, when the playoff format is 12 teams, it's going to be a different question. But not when it's 4. Not when it's 4.
Right.
He's got to be joking.
He has to be.
I've got to count on a guy as smart as Chris Fink that he's only joking about that.
Sarcasm.
That's right. All right, this is a super chat, so we have to address this. I don't know how I'm going to address this, but Milton Fan 15 with the super chat says, Sean, you have to pick either Vince or Brian to line up a double team against Alt and Fisher.
So one of us,
fight, who explodes from impact?
One of us versus the two of them? How is that even close to fair?
Yeah, like why would those two guys need to double team either Vince or Brian?
First of all, you don't double team a safety, okay? So
That's right.
And you don't double team a quarterback either, which is what Brian was. Yeah, this question goes to you, so I'm going to sit back.
I think what I would do is I would have Vince and Brian attempt to double team one of those two guys, like the other way around.
Yeah.
Right. And then their scrappiness would show through. I would take the Brian D'Addario double team.
Nice. That would be
Blake Fisher.
I would go low. I can tell you that right now. I'm going low, and if he falls on me, it might be game over, because he's a large human, and I am not a large human in the same regard that he is a large human. So, but I'm going low, man. I'm going low, and I just got to get my running back a little bit of room, and he can get through there.
Now, again, the Chris Fink tweet, I believe, was facetious. 3-loss Notre Dame in the playoff. But Salty wants to know, if Notre Dame wins out its remaining games, what are the chances of a New Year's Six Bowl?
Okay, I'm going to ask for some clarification. What are the rules about the New Year's Six? Isn't there like a basement for where you need to be ranked in order to get into one of those games? Isn't that accurate or no?
There is. And I've got to hang on just a second,
because that's going to sway my answer, and here's why, while you look that up. If Notre Dame is eligible for a New Year's Six game, okay, so if it's top 15 or whatever the case may be, okay, if they are eligible, I think they get selected because they're a draw, and it doesn't matter. It's all about, can you sell tickets? So Anthony says it's top 12. I have a hard time
12
seeing.
teams end up making it, but I don't know if it's the top 12 rankings. That's what I'm not.
Okay. If it's hypothetically, if it's top 12, I do have a hard time seeing Notre Dame get into the top 12, even if they beat Clemson and USC. Maybe if it's like 15, maybe they have a shot at getting in that spot, But again, if they're eligible, I think they get in, because who wouldn't want Notre Dame as a draw to their game, to their bowl game? They would. And it's about money and eyeballs on the TV. Period.
I believe it is top 12. And I mean, it wouldn't be much of a stretch to end up in the, because like,
it's possible.
Let me see. Hang on just a sec. I'm looking for some. Yeah. So the college football playoff rankings, like they don't go past 25. But like Notre Dame, again, they're showing up just outside the top 25 in both the coaches and the AP poll this week, for whatever that's worth. So
sure,
you beat Clemson, I think they've got a really good shot at being ranked.
Agreed.
Next week.
I agree with that.
And then obviously
they kind of work
take care
their
of
way.
Business, Navy, yeah, like peck away. And then the question is just going to be how far up you can climb, because you do still have enough won and no loss teams right now, occupying those higher spots. But again, some of those teams are going to start losing as well because of the fact that they're playing each other.
And here's the other thing. After the top 4 on December 4th, when the final rankings come out, after the top 4, the rest of the rankings don't matter. So if the college football committee wants to make money, and they do, they might just put Notre Dame 12 so that they could be selected for a New Year's Six bowl. Okay.
That's a good point.
That could absolutely happen. And there's nothing to stop them from doing that, because they are 100%
they can do whatever they want
in control of those New Year's Six games. 100%.
Yes.
So if Notre Dame wins out, could they be in a New Year's Six bowl? Yes, they could be. They'd have a lot of things would have to fall their way, but it could happen.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And they essentially they get to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
So
they can produce whatever matchups they want, the whole nine. I mean, it could happen. Now Notre Dame has to take care of their side of the business too.
Yeah. Ed says Tommy Rees's idea of quarterback development, have the quarterback look to the sideline for answers for every play. No wonder Pine doesn't see the field well. Maybe if he had the defense himself, he'd know what to do. Yeah, I don't totally disagree with that, but I think that because Notre Dame has never really done this check with me scan offense before, it's a little bit of a blind spot for Notre Dame fans, because there are plenty of offenses around the country who have been doing this for years. Notre Dame is far from the only team. It's like It's like the catcher in college, getting the signs from the dugout, rather than calling his own pitches. And those it's like it's kind of micromanaging from the sideline and from the dugout has been going on for a long time in college sports. It's not exclusive to what's going on with Tommy Rees and Drew Pine this year.
And I don't like it at any other place either. It slows down the game and it makes the game boring, in my opinion. So from a fan standpoint, I don't like it no matter who's doing it.
Yeah. Stymie, who changed his avatar, unfortunately.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Says that he's been raking leaves, mowing, and burning leaves. All right.
Do you see what his license plate is?
I did not.
DYFJ. Do your effing job is what his license plate is, and it's a Notre Dame plate.
I love it. I think Tommy must have got in late tonight as well, but good to have you guys around. So the Big 12 has a new media rights deal with ESPN and Fox. It's going to pay them more than $2 billion. So each school is going to reportedly go from receiving $22 million a year to just under $32 million a year. So my question, with Notre Dame's TV rights deal still a couple years away, does this make you, kind of view what the Irish could potentially get? How does it maybe, make you look at that, I guess?
I don't think it changes my opinion from before, and I don't remember all the numbers that we were throwing out when this was like a hot topic a couple of months ago, but Notre Dame's going to clean up. They're going to do just fine. They're going to be able to, number one, they're going to be able to get a deal, whether it's with NBC or someone else. They're going to be able to get a deal. And they're going to be just fine financially with said deal, because not only are they going to get that deal, but they're also going to get a cut of the ACC deal. They're going to be just fine.
I agree. And they're not going to get the $100 million a year that the Big Ten and SEC schools are getting.
Right.
But I think they're going to get considerably more than $32 million a year that these Big 12 schools are getting, because with Texas and Oklahoma leaving, you have no marquee program,
right?
Or, like no marquee school that it's like, wow, we've really got to people, there's no appointment viewing for Oklahoma State or Baylor in terms of their games being on TV. And Notre Dame still has that. There's a lot more cachet from Notre Dame. So it's not going to be as low as 32 million. It's not going to be as high as 100 million. I think it's going to be, closer to 100 than 32. I don't think it'll be, like nudging on 100, but I still think it'll be closer to 100 than 32. I think they're going to be just fine when this whole thing is said and done. And again, especially if there are multiple bidding bidders out there, which it appears there are.
Yeah. So, yep, I agree.
I thought I saw one other thing. Oh yes, I need to ask you this from Milton. So Vince, your best friend asks you to set up his daughter on a date. Which Notre Dame coach do you pick? Which coach would ruin your friendship?
Well, I guess we're going away from the fact that my daughters are 13 and 10.
So, 13's getting close to dating age, though.
Believe me, I'm well aware.
I'm sure you are.
But they're being set up with adults. So it's an odd question, Milton fan. It's an odd question. As far as who the coaches are, and do I think that like they're good dudes? Like if that's the kind of the question, is that the route that we're going here?
I think so. I think so.
Harry's too old. Okay. Although I think he's a good dude. Let's see here. I'll go with Brian Mason. How about that? Because I think he's a really good coach. I think he's got a lot of energy. I think he could handle the craziness that is a D'Addario daughter. So even though they're not adults, and I don't know what they're going to be like when they're adults, they're 13 and 10, two 13-year-olds and a 10-year-old. But yeah, so there's that.
All right. So Vince, the Bad News Bears, they're going to make it into a TV reboot. It's going to have a female lead. Instead of Buttermaker, Walter Matthau in the original, and Billy Bob Thornton, I think was Billy Bob Buttermaker in the second one.
Yeah.
So the coach is going to be a down-on-her-luck divorced mom. That's what the coach is going to be, coaching a team of misfits in a cutthroat little league. Do you buy or sell this new spin on the Bad News Bears franchise?
I'm going to ask you a question here.
Okay.
Do you have Disney Plus?
I do not.
Okay. So this is going to fall on deaf ears, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
Okay.
I was a fan of the Mighty Ducks movies when they came out. That's kind of like my wheelhouse, like the 90s. Like those kids are all kind of my age, right?
Emilio Estevez.
Yeah. And so they got a reboot going on Disney Plus. They turned it into like a series. And this is almost identical to what they did with the reboot. The coach is now the mom, and she's the down on her luck, blah, 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 blah. Everything you just said is the reboot for the Mighty Ducks.
They're done with the Mighty Ducks. Okay.
Yes.
So it's not even a novel concept in terms of the genre.
It's not. And I'll tell you what, have I been watching it? Yes. Is it any good? Not really. Not really enjoying it a whole lot, but it's something to watch. You know what I mean? It's one of those kinds of things. I think this is a terrible idea. And why do we have to go PC? The best part about the Bad News Bears is that it wasn't PC.
That's exactly what I was going to say. As someone, the first one was, I think, in 1977, 76 or 77.
Yes.
I think it was 76. And they put out the Bad News Bears and Breaking Training, like a year later in 77. And the best part was the fact that you had kids, using language and saying things and drinking.
Yes.
They were doing things that kids aren't supposed to do.
Yes.
And they don't depict that in anything with kids today because of where, the entertainment business is. You're right. It's like kids can't cuss now. You can't show a kid smoking a cigarette. Kelly Leak can't be riding his motorcycle out there on the field, chasing girls and all that stuff. It's like, it's just, that was the fun of the Bad News Bears.
Yes.
And this is not coming from an adult. This is from a kid who was the same age as the original Bad News Bears watching it at the time.
Yes. I didn't even like the remake of the Bad News Bears because
I didn't either.
It wasn't what the first one was. I mean, Billy Bob Thornton was okay in the role, and they did the strip club, and okay, whatever. But it wasn't the same. I mean, that was a novelty, and it was what it was because it was original. You can't remake that. And now they're going to remake it for a second time, and they're going to go all. I mean, they're saying woke and stuff in the chat, but it's like essentially what it is. And that's not okay. Now, I will also say this: if it is available on something that I watch, I'll watch it just so I can complain about it.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
But you remember when they did the Ghostbusters with the all-female cast? And I
Didn't
think
see
I
it.
saw it, but I can't even remember.
Didn't
The
see
world, you would have thought the world was ending. Like people's lives were literally ruined because they remade the Ghostbusters with a female cast. It's like people overreacted so much.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's like the concept isn't bad. Like, okay, down on her luck, divorced mom, because you do actually have more moms coaching Little League and stuff
that's
like
true.
that. And like, Jesse was talking about, people he encountered in his stint as a Little League coach this summer. One of them was a mom who, this is, nothing against moms, but she thought that she knew more than she did about the sport. That's what he was referring to yesterday.
I had a girl on my baseball team. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I'm not anti that.
It has nothing to do with that. It just has to do with it feels like it's been done before with the Mighty Ducks, which is currently out. Right.
See, and knowing that, because I didn't even know that. So it's like, you've already got a classic movie that they've already tried to remake with another movie that really flopped.
Yes.
And then now 2, you're trying to go a step farther and, put a different spin on it. But the problem is, as you said, in the sports genre, they've already done that with the remake of a movie into a TV series with the same concept. So it's not even an original concept in the second generation, I guess. So
yeah, I
don't get it.
That doesn't make sense to me. They're running out of good ideas, apparently.
Yeah.
So did you watch Quantum Leap from Monday night?
I did not, because it was on late, and I know it's got like the Exorcist vibe to it, and I didn't want to like do the Exorcist vibe before bedtime.
That's fair. No, that's fair. Best one yet, though. I will say that.
Oh, really? Okay,
it was good.
All right.
That's not setting the bar super high, but it's the best one yet.
That's true. You know what I think is going to happen though? I think that Joe Montana leap that we've been talking about with Quantum Leap, I think it's going to be the season finale.
100%.
They're like, they teased that in the trailer from the very beginning, and they're just trying to sucker guys like us into watching all
season.
season.
Working. I mean, it's working. I'm watching. Yeah.
I know. And again, like, we're not anti-females coaching. It is not that.
Not at all.
Like the Bad News Bears franchise, Vince hit it on the head. Part of the fun of the original was the extreme precociousness of the kids in the original movie.
And the whole concept also of Bad News Bears. Like, you could have put a woman in that role and it would have been just fine.
Yeah.
In the 1976 version. Like, that would have been fine. And the whole point of that also was that you had a girl who was one of the best players on the team.
Good point.
So, I mean, that was ahead of its time and all of those different things, right? So I have zero. Again, I started a girl on my high school baseball team. Okay. Right. I am the furthest person that would be against, the women being in it. And that has nothing to do with it. It's just,
I just think it's an unoriginal spin at this point.
Yes, exactly. And why are you trying to remake it when it already was remade and it was not good?
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, Vince, that's going to do it for us tonight. Good mailbag show tonight.
I loved it, man. It was good
People
stuff.
Brought their A game.
They did. There was good questions today.
Yeah, there was. All right, we'll be back tomorrow to wrap up the week with IB Nation Sports Talk. And, of course, we got a big show coming up Saturday morning, 10 o'clock, IB Countdown to Kickoff as we get prepped up, for Clemson. A little bit, like a different times. We had noon last week. We got 7:30 this week.
Big difference, whereas we were, rushing to get done with the show so that we could watch the game at noon. And now we have to wait 7.5 hours after we finish the show.
For real.
Yikes.
All right. Hit that like button on your way out if you would. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. We appreciate you. We will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.